Hello everybody, in today's video I'm going to be explaining the 10 forms of Vishnu in brief, and to do that I've drawn behind me on the whiteboard. I've updated the whiteboard since last time, and please bear with me as I'm going to be moving apartments soon, so figuring out the lighting and everything, it isn't going to be perfect right now, but eventually I'll learn the ropes and start to get a better setup each time. So to begin, I redrew this diagram because up here when I was talking about source, I was talking about God. Truly, I should have been placing Shiva in that point, being Shiva is the one that is unmanifest, and Shiva is one that it's all encompassing. I before drew the lines as they were solid, but no, really, Shiva in the shape of the universe, he encapsulates everything, so he surrounds everything as these lines, imaginary lines, would be drawn all around this entire whiteboard. And so Vishnu is seen in a sense then as, if I compare this to Christianity, as Shiva being the father, Vishnu being the son, and Brahma being the always pervasive Holy Spirit that can be accessed from within. Vishnu basically being the dreamer, Shiva being the state of the void and of nothingness, all of that which is not. Vishnu is the one that is the dreamer. So you have Vishnu, and he is laying down on the Milky Ocean on top of the serpent, and he's relaxed there dreaming, and many different times he's decided to enter the dream instead of being there on the ocean. There's many times Vishnu has decided to enter the dream and take various forms. And so without further ado, I'll begin with explaining each one of the forms. The first form was Matsya, the fish avatar of Vishnu. The next avatar was Kurma, who was the turtle form of Vishnu. The next one being Varaha, which is the boar avatar of Vishnu, and then we move on to Narasimha, who is the half lion, half man form of Vishnu. And now to take a look and just to pause right here, what you can see is every time Vishnu comes back, he comes back as the next form, the next level in evolutionary consciousness. For instance, like if you think about how this is going, a fish is much lower in sentience compared to any turtle and any reptile, and basically the sense is he came back as one form from each division from the animal kingdom. So, a fish, a reptile, then became a mammal, being Varaha, and then coming as Narasimha, half man, half lion, and lion basically, being king of the jungle and type of thing. So he decided to become the most apex predator and come back at that point. And it was always an evolution, because then at this point, then he goes on to Vamana, who is the dwarfed man, a dwarfed version of Vishnu as he came back. And then he came back as Parashuram, who was in the warrior class. And so now once we get into the humanity side, when he's coming down in human form, as you can see that he's basically just going up the different set caste of life, going from dwarf man to soldier, eventually then going to being Ram, who was military strategizer, and going on to Krishna, who spoke with Arjun and was his basically his eyes on the battlefield. So each time you see as he's coming back, he's becoming more and more of an advanced man. His form of Krishna being a loving man, and Krishna being associated with the heart chakra. Many great things come from Vishnu. Every time he comes down, it's basically like he's updating this reality that we live in. After Krishna, though, this is kind of when there's this time of the basically Christianity starts to become a thing. You have Jesus in the 00 years, who basically, from my perspective, a lot of his information likely was when those 16 years of people don't know where Jesus was, he was likely out traveling to the east via the Silk Road, and learning a lot of this stuff. That's why when it comes to question, when he came back to Europe and to teach his information and spread his knowledge, people question, there's a huge debate about this even today between both Christianity and Islam as to whether he was actually a proclaimed son of God, like he was an avatar of Vishnu. Not that out in Europe they had the concept of Vishnu, or was it that he was just, a very enlightened man who was going around teaching others, teaching the word of God, and teaching that, there is nothing special about Jesus. He was teaching that everyone can become like me. We can all become Vishnus. We can all become dreamers in our own right. We all can reach this state of Christ consciousness where we have selfless love for everyone and we forgive our neighbors and brothers and all that. When Islam came, it was very similar to the teachings, and they still had Jesus as basically like a religious figure, like a prophet type figure, but did not see him as being a direct incarnation of Vishnu. And so this is important. Why I'm stopping here is, so I've drawn this for Arjun, and then it goes to Krishna, is because at this point people really do question as to, this is right now, if we go to Krishna, that's the 8th avatar. The 9th avatar is commonly argued that it is Buddha. Buddha was the 9th avatar, but again, at the same time, you see other figures as well, like Christ pop up, so potentially, there's a sense that maybe as Vishnu has come down in other forms, these are only his main forms, but sometimes he's come down in forms where he's been both, male and female counterpart. So Vishnu is known that, he can be multiple people at once. God can act through multiple people at once. So that's something that I can't, say whether or not Christ was truly Vishnu. I think that's just up for other people to have that perspective. But I think that at the end of the day, Christ was somebody who's changed so many people's lives that he basically is a God in his own right. And the people are worshiping him to get to God. At the end of the day, that works too, because what Buddha's teachings were, a lot of Buddha's teachings were basically was that for how people could reach Buddhahood or become a Vishnu. I'll stop a moment and talk about Buddha because I absolutely love to talk about Buddha. I traveled to Nepal, the birthplace of the Buddha, and he basically came back. When Vishnu came back, it would make sense. He came up in a higher, Buddha was a prince, so he came up in one of the highest castes you can, which would make sense with the storyline. Came back and basically taught people. It's very interesting, the teachings, because from how I view it is, Buddhism is teaching everything from an enlightened person's point of view, because they're saying with the deities, they don't see the deities as being anything but reflections of themselves. And at the end of the day, when you realize that you are Vishnu, you would see all these other forms and all these other deities would simply seem as different aspects of yourself. So to me, it seems almost kind of like Hinduism will show you all the deities, and at the end, you can kind of realize, oh, well, this is Vishnu. Vishnu is the dreamer of all of them at the end of the day. So, Buddhism kind of takes that route by saying, oh, all of these deities are just aspects of yourself, saying that right off the bat. So I think it's a very interesting perspective, and obviously a lot of people thought that Buddha was very interesting because his religion, but his pathway that he took, that he brought from, that was basically a new branch of Hinduism that he brought and passed on all throughout of Asia, and there's so many beautiful temples all over, through Vietnam, Korea, all those beautiful, wonderful places. And I will move on past this topic because I will want to move on to the 10th and final avatar, which is Kalki. Now, I think it's very important with Kalki that we reflect on the teachings of the Buddha and everything he taught, how he was teaching people basically how to reach Buddhahood, how to become, the dreamer, how to master the self. I think in a sense that Buddha's message was to make it so that it didn't matter where you came from life. He came from such a high place in life, but it didn't matter where you came from life, you could ultimately reach Buddhahood. And I think when we see the rise of Kalki, for the most part, it's not just going to be an effort of one individual, it will be an effort of multiple people combined, because that energy, right, of Vishnu, and we've had so many years of teaching saying, at the end of the day, there's so many different ways, through Hinduism, all these different pathways to realize you are Vishnu, you are the dreamer, that I feel like the next incarnation of Kalki, it might not just be one person, it might be more of a movement of people saying, like in Spartacus, everybody's going to be standing forward and saying, no, I'm Kalki. Because in the day, we are all Vishnu. So if all people, step forward and say, hey, we could change things, I'm the dreamer, I'm the one who wants to change things, God acts through us, that very well could be the answer. Otherwise, people might be waiting for, a boy on a white horse who may never come. And that's why it's like, at the end of the day, the best thing to do is to use all those who came before you as teachers and as guides in order to become like them and to do what they did. And so to be like Christ, to be like Ram, to be like Krishna, to be like Buddha, perhaps that's the most powerful thing that we can do for the rise of Kalki. And the way I see it is everything that I'm doing here on this channel and everyone that I interact with, and I'll say I absolutely love that people leave comments and everything. I actually been learning so much from all of you. So it's just been a wonderful interaction and community to have, to be able to chat with other people who know a lot of different things and come from different perspectives from me, because I am learning a lot. So this has all been wonderful. And that's why I say, like, everything I'm doing here is for the rise of Kalki, because, well, this here, I didn't draw this just, all messed up just because I can't draw well. That is true, but this actually represents here, the reason why it's off and not centered is because this represents the Kaliyug age that we're in. And this black dot can represent what's up here, the Sadashiva, the ultimate nothingness, and Kaliyug age, we are closest to that black dot, and that's basically why it's drawn like this. Once the yuga changes to Sat Yuga, it will basically turn to the opposite, where it'll be farther away from that black hole. And this is something that people predict to, happen within the next 7 years, that we'll see some sort of rise of a Kalki figure. And it's very interesting, especially given the current events. That's why I cover world events too. I know it's unpopular and also very difficult for me to share due to the how controversial it may be, but I feel like you have to have a background story of everything that's going on in the world in order to understand where we are right now and how we can fix things. And with all this, I think it's important because a lot of things that are coming and happening currently in today's times are ringing a bit biblical. So it's good to freshen up on all your Vishnu avatars so you can learn all the lessons from them and the lessons that they brought to us, and ultimately, we can step in and be that Kalki and be that Vishnu avatar for the people in our lives. Without further ado, Jai Mahakal.